Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Corbett. I do custom quilting, and here what I have for you today is this whimsical sampler. This was a playground for all kinds of great background quilting, and this is going to be an explainer, not a demonstration video. So we'll be looking at what all got quilted, but not the actual quilting part, for various reasons. But there's a lot to look at here and a lot to explain. It's full of good stuff. The mandate for this quilt from the client was do your thing, go have fun. So I tried to do just that. This is a fused applique quilt with a little bit of piecing. There's a nice variety of things happening in here. And so I tried to put in a nice variety of background quilting to keep the eye moving, to create a whole lot of visual interest. This is all freehand quilting. There's a little bit of ruler work, but nothing digital in here. I used almost all one color thread, this off-white, and some gray in the border, and then there's one patch that had some darker beige in it. The batting is Hobbs 80-20, just one layer. And here's a look at the finished top before I began quilting it, so you can see how you might quilt it. Well, let's look at this block by block. Let's start right here. On this block, I thought, well, let's just do some straight, regular, traditional echo. And I think that looks pretty good. I freehanded part of it, and I used some rulers here and there. One of the pitfalls with this kind of echo is it can look stressed out, like it's vibrating and it's had too much caffeine or something, which is one of the reasons I don't attempt this real often. But I think this looks okay. I don't know if it looks as calm as I'd like for it to be, but I think it's pretty good. I quilted very simply within the applique, just those two lines to define the petals of the flower. I hope this is going to show up. There was a grid already in the print of the fabric, so I cross-hatched over it. That was a nice way to get that quilted. And you see the style of applique. There's, decorative stitching around there. So I didn't feel like it needed hardly anything. I normally vein up the leaves and stuff, but I didn't want to have two different threads. There's one around the perimeter and then the quilting stitch. I thought those would interfere, so I left those blank. This is a stylized snail. So I put another flower in the space and I swirled the snail's shell. So then I wanted contrast, and that's what led to this angular meander. It's just a bunch of little zigzags going in all different directions. I think that's pretty effective. I like it a lot. In this block, I wanted something round. So I chose that little rainbow design. I think it really works there. And one of the reasons why is this is one of those busy fabrics that's not going to show the quilting too much. And this design shows up here. So anything else besides a texture isn't going to be readily visible or recognizable. And that meander makes me think of white wall tires. So I don't know, that just kind of fit. This is fused applique, so you're not going to get the same results as you would with, say, needle turn. I didn't quilt on the applique much, hardly at all, because I wanted them to puff somehow. So we've got some puff happening there. there's a little bit of dimension going on. See here, I quilted, I outline quilted around the shapes, right up against the perimeter as usual. I couldn't leave the snail shell unquilted. Up here, I did some curved lines emanating from the little butterflies. I like the way that looks. It's kind of happy and delightful. And then I did channel quilting on the rest of it. The reason I think that works is because you've got the round of the wheels and the horizontal straight lines are kind of a way to have some good contrast. We wanted movement in other blocks, so I saved most of the movement for the other blocks. On this block, I don't like background up against background if they're both going to be dense. So I put a frame in this one. Those two close together lines kind of set it off. It frames those flowers. And in lieu of a super dense background, I quilted some flowers that replicate the appliqué. And then where I had room, I quilted, the full petals. And then I filled in, I hope you can see, with a loop meander. There's a few swirls in there, but kind of little to fill the space without being extremely elaborate. Because the quilting doesn't really show that much, even though it's a light colored fabric. That little polka dot kind of interferes there somewhat. All right, on this patch, see it's darker in color, and I switched to a darker thread and put in my favorite finger feather design. I can pretty much do that in my sleep. I like the way it goes back and forth. It's simple, it's fast, and I thought that was pretty good as a transitional piece between blocks. For this background, that's a busy print. So I started here doing curvy lines that go in and around. And then I filled in on the rest with something similar. On that flower itself, okay, that's a fabric that you can't really see the quilting. I quilted around the black circle and then added some little loops around it. And I like the way it puffs. So that's pretty good. On this block, it was kind of a no-brainer. There's already lines there. So I picked an interval about 3/8 of an inch apart and followed the lines. Some nice diagonal quilting for some more contrast. You've got the diagonal up against the vertical, and they're, one is straight and the other is curved. So that's nice. Okay, this frame here, what it is, they're interlocking loops. You do one row and then the other. And the spacing is tricky. It's the first time you do it, it's a little, you have to leave enough space, right? After I quilt this loop, then I want to make sure that I've got enough space in here for the other line to go in there. And then it's a little tricky in the corner. You've got to work that out. It's nice to practice this on paper before you go after it in real time. And when you get too close to the corner, you kind of have to stop and think, how many more repeats can I get in there? But that's, once you get the hang of it, it's fast and easy, and I love the way that looks. I think that's great. So while we're here, here's the biggest block in the quilt. And so to imply motion, I went for this S-curve background. And here in the corner, that's a lot of space. It needed some motif. So since there were already flowers in there, I put some flowers in. So I did the flowers, echoed them, went in for It's a little dense background quilting, just little arcs or little wavy lines. In other places that were really small, I just did a little meander because that was going to be quicker. And then you just S-curve throughout the rest of it. And I added lines in between the tire spokes. I think that's good contrast, the straight up against all those curves. So that's pretty nice. I had fun on this block down here. The idea came to me to put in some straight lines in between the ladybugs, and then I filled in with some leafy branches. And I love the way that looks. I think that's really good. So about 4 diagonal lines and then the leaves. So I think that's pretty snazzy. I like it. I had so much fun on this block. I went with the picket fence. I did lines that line up with the pickets. And then in between, I did some little dimensional quilting. I ended up with that arrow shape because they replicate the top of the, the pointy fence. So I love the way that looks. It gives us some really good texture. It was, that's painstaking. It'll take some time, but I think it was well worth it. In the piecing here, I just did continuous curve. It doesn't need much more than that. I used a ruler here. I don't normally. That's where I would haul off and do it freehand. And for some reason today, I just wanted to use a ruler, so I did. Let's go ahead and talk about the border while we're at it. Let's use this corner here. All right. Now talk about pattern upon pattern and thread color. I used a dark gray thread, both on the frame. See, I just outlined that big fat rickrack a couple times and called it a day. The quilting this close to it twice kind of made the unquilted part puff up, which I think is kind of good because it gives that rickrack some added dimension. I didn't want black. Black will be severe, so the dark gray was a good way to go. I thought about white, but then you'd have white lines up against the white of the print, and I didn't think that was going to be good. So I didn't really want any more pattern in here, which is how I ended up with straight lines. And the only thing that's, well, one of the things that's really good about it, I think, is by running them both off the edge, horizontally and vertically, you end up with a plaid corner, which I think is really pretty cool. I like that a lot. And the gray is subtle enough. If you're up close to it, you can really see it. But the farther back you get, you really don't see the lines hardly at all. And another consideration is the back. I didn't want dark gray back there, so I used a little bit of a lighter gray. And there is a contrast, but it's the back of the quilt, and it's not a high contrast. Think if I had used black, that would be really awful. So that went quickly. Okay. All right, I hope this light is good enough to show you the quilting on this background. I did a row of echo, and then I began filling in with swirls and some little feathery things and other little shapes. This is fun. This you make up as you go along. Actually, this is a better example to show you what the overall gist is. You make some loops, some concentric loops, and then you add petals, and then you echo, and you throw in a swirl, and then that just gives you more to echo, and you keep on going. And this makes a great overall design on a whole quilt. And you can throw in all kinds of what have you. It's a lot of fun. You can make these spiky parts out here. I really like that. I think that's a lot of fun. So that's how that block got quilted. There again, this is another fabric that's not really going to show the quilting very effectively. So it kind of didn't matter what you put in there. I quilted some circles and stuff inside the O's. One more detail for the eye to have fun looking at. And then this block, the client specifically asked for, can you do some clouds? So I did some research. I like to teach myself how to be an artist. So I'm always looking at art books and stuff. There's a lot of space there, but you see those birds are pretty up close. The perspective is an ongoing issue, and I wanted the clouds to look like they were way off in the distance. So what I've read is you want the billowing rounded cloud parts to be on top. The bottom of clouds realistically are a lot more flat. So some are closer than others. I think that's pretty good. And then I did what we in quilting call a ground meander. If you put it on the ground, it'll look like the ground. If you put it on blue, it'll look like water. If you put it up in the sky, it's going to look like, wind up there in the sky. And then I just filled in with some windy lines below the birds. But I think that turned out pretty darn well. I like it a lot. So that is our whimsical quilt. I think it turned out really delightfully. I'm pretty happy with it, and the client loved it too. Thanks for watching.